Good evening and welcome to Metro Focus. I'm Rafael P. Roman. The ongoing investigation into Russia's meddling in the 2016 presidential election takes center stage today as special counsel Robert Mueller files the first charges in his probe. President Trump's former campaign chairman Paul Manafort and a former business associate Rick Gates have surrendered to federal authorities in connection to a month-long probe into Russia's potential role in the 2016 election. Today's unsealed indictment reveals that the pair faced 12 charges each for activities that spanned from 2006 to 2016. The charges include conspiracy against the United States and conspiracy to launder money through multiple entities to hide the tens of millions of dollars they made as unregistered agents of the Ukrainian government. Prosecutors allege that Manafort bought multi-million-dollar properties in the U.S. using offshore accounts to funnel more than $75 million. He then used the properties as collateral to borrow more money in America. Gates is said to have transferred $3 million from these offshore accounts to other accounts he controlled. According to prosecutors, the two used their hidden overseas wealth to enjoy a lavish tax-free lifestyle in the United States. But what do we really know about these two men? Paul Manafort is a lobbyist and political consultant who joined the presidential campaign in March 2016. He resigned just 3 months later amid reports that his firm was involved in covert lobbying in support of a pro-Russian political party in the Ukraine. He did not initially disclose his work to the Justice Department, leading to questions of whether he'd violated an international lobbying law. Rick Gates is said to be Manafort's longtime protege and junior partner, and his name appears on documents linked to companies Manafort's firm had set up in Cyprus to receive payments from business associates in Eastern Europe. The political impact of these charges will be just as important as the legal issues at play, as all eyes turn to Trump, who had this to say this morning, quote, "Sorry, but this is years ago, before Paul Manafort was part of the Trump campaign. But why aren't crooked Hillary and the Dems the focus?" Trump followed his initial tweet by writing, quote, "Also, there is no collusion." In a separate development this morning, former Trump campaign foreign policy advisor George Papadopoulos pled guilty to making a false statement to the FBI regarding his interactions with senior foreign officials close to the Russian government. According to unsealed court records, Papadopoulos, quote, falsely described his interactions with a certain foreign contact who discussed dirt related to emails concerning Hillary Clinton. There's a major difference between the charges brought against Manafort and Gates and the guilty plea by Papadopoulos. The charges brought against Manafort and Gates are unrelated to the Trump campaign, but Papadopoulos brings the Mueller probe directly into actions that occurred during the 2016 campaign. The latest poll numbers show the president's approval rating has dropped to the lowest point in his presidency. But what lies beyond the numbers and this apparent erosion of support? For answers, we turn now to my colleague Jenna Flanagan, who is standing by at Columbia University with Jennifer Rogers, Executive Director for the Center for the Advancement of Public Integrity.
Thanks, Raf. Jennifer, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me.
First, I want to get your take. What was your reaction when you first heard that this indictment was unsealed and there were several people who were going to be charged by the Mueller investigation?
Well, of course, I was curious with everyone else to see what they were. So now that we have seen the charges, I think it's very interesting. Of course, the main charges against Manafort and Gates don't have to do with any conspiracy with the Russians to interfere with last year's elections. Notwithstanding that, they're very serious charges. They carry a lot of jail time, and so I think this will put a lot of pressure on Manafort and Gates to come in and cooperate with authorities.
In addition to Mueller and, of course, Gates, there was also a third gentleman, George Papadopoulos. How important is it that he's already pleaded guilty to these charges?
That's right. So he's cooperating with authorities already. He made some false statements as alleged, well, as proven, I guess,
yes,
because he's pleaded guilty to that in January, and then he pleaded guilty in July. So he's clearly working with the authorities. He's a lower level campaign figure, but what's interesting about those charges is that what he has told them is actually about his efforts and the efforts of other people on the campaign to deal directly with the Russians and to get information about Hillary Clinton that is damaging and so therefore helpful to the Trump campaign.
So even though he's a low-level fish that they've gotten so far, the fact that he's he's pleading guilty. How big of a deal is that in regards to Manafort, Gates, and then potentially anyone else?
Well, it's a big deal to get anyone to plead guilty and cooperate. It's unclear how far his information will go. The charges do mention a more senior campaign official, supervising campaign official or something, I think the person was called. So we know that Papadopoulos does implicate some other people. The question is how many and to what degree. We just don't know how far his information will move up compared to someone like Manafort, who's much higher level.
Also, is there a hierarchy to the charges that we've seen so far, at least against Manafort? Because there is the issue of money laundering, but there's also charges of conspiracy against the U.S. What is the most damning that we've seen so far?
So conspiracy against the U.S. is basically just saying that Gates and Manafort conspired together to break another U.S. law. So it's not really that important in and of itself. The money laundering charges are important. Those are probably the highest level charges in there. The other things about registering as a foreign agent, for example, aren't as huge of a deal in and of themselves.
And do they carry heavy prison terms if he's convicted of any of this?
When you add it all together, the prison term is huge because technically each of the money laundering counts is 20 years, and you add everything together. They are facing a good amount of time on the money laundering because the amounts involved were very high, and that's how the sentence is usually calculated. But the registering as a foreign agent, as I said, that part isn't that big of a deal in terms of time faced.
Well, before all of this happened, we saw the president take to Twitter and sort of deflect or plead his case, claiming that this was false news, this was a witch hunt, this Mueller investigation was basically unfair to him. However, we've also seen with his actions that he's willing to pardon people who have been charged or found guilty of something in the infamous case with Sheriff Arpaio. Are blanket pardons something that we could see coming down the pike from the president?
Well, that would be a blockbuster development, right? I mean, Sheriff Arpaio was convicted of something that had nothing to do with the president. So pardoning him certainly kind of espouses a certain worldview, but it couldn't be looked at as kind of an obstruction move, right? Mm-hmm. If he pardoned Manafort or Gates or Papadopoulos even though he's been convicted, that could be viewed as an obstructive act in and of itself, because it would basically hinder their cooperating if they thought that they were going to be pardoned.
The president right now has these historic low approval ratings, hovering somewhere around like 38%. However, at the same time, he's made it very clear that he has every intention of running for office again in 2020. I'm wondering, how much of a problem or how much of an issue does this investigation, this Mueller investigation, affect his ability to run for president again in 4 years?
Well, at the end, I think it really comes down to Congress. I mean, if Mueller's investigation turns up information that Mueller thinks shows actual criminal behavior on the part of the president, for example, obstructing justice by firing Jim Comey and trying to obstruct the Russia investigation, and he writes a report to Congress that says, I believe that obstruction of justice happened, then that's basically in Congress's hands as to whether they file impeachment charges. So, that to me would be the most likely scenario to stop him from running again. Whether that happens is going to be up to the GOP and Congress, but that is, I don't know if it's a likely scenario, but if Mueller's report contains allegations of law breaking, then it'll basically be in Congress's lap as to what they're willing to do.
All right, well, Jennifer Rogers, Executive Director of the Center for the Advancement of Public Integrity, I want to thank you so much for joining us on the program and giving us some better insight into the Mueller investigation and what we can possibly expect to happen next.
Of course, thank you.